Well, hello everybody. Um, Exciting to be putting this event together in the times of where so many conferences are getting canceled everywhere because of what's going on with the coronavirus. That it's very painful, I gotta say, with the event organizers because they put so much effort, energy, resources into making those conferences happen, and canceling them really is painful. So a word of encouragement to you event organizers that are making the hard decision to cancel a conference, but you're doing it for the right reasons. That is the safety of your community. And I am hoping that you all are enjoying what we're doing with our event. We put together an event. It's a 4-day event. We are on the third day, almost done with the conference, and we got 11,000 people signing up for our event. We're bringing 230 speakers from all over the world. So it's been a very exciting journey to put this together. And I am really happy to have Amy Smith, the Chief Giving Officer from Tom's, joining us today. Hi, Amy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, as I said before offline, we got some people from Alaska connecting to the call. They will be thinking about that nice blue sky that you have back there.
Sending you some sun in Alaska.
Fantastic. Well, Amy, I want to begin this conversation by asking you the title, Chief Giving Officer. I have been working for a long time and I have never seen anything like that before.
Yeah.
Why Chief Giving Officer? Where does it come from?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's such an important conversation, especially as we think about the future of purpose and impact inside companies. So the role itself sits on the executive team. I report directly to the CEO. I am responsible for this portion of our business, just as somebody who is our CFO is responsible for the financial component of our business. And so where it sits is really important. The title itself, I think, came from our founder. He is our chief shoe giver. And so I think, running the day-to-day business of our giving, of our social impact, was really just sort of a fun, ownable way for Tom's to say, we're really committed to this on every level. And so I do get a lot of comments about my title, for sure. But I actually think, taking this type of a role really seriously is incredibly important, and we should continue to make sure that that's happening across the world.
Absolutely, and that's fantastic. And Amy, just wanted to tell you that we have people connecting from all over the world, Kenya, Madrid, of course, in the United States. Please let us know, everybody, where you're connecting from. I just wanted to mention the Alaska person. We have somebody from South Florida. We have also people from Sydney. But let me move on to the motto of Tom's, which is a better tomorrow where humanity thrives. And this is really powerful because you are a business, you are a for-profit business, but you have this very powerful social commitment. I mean, it is even in your title, in the motto of Tom's. What triggered the thinking of making Tom's such a socially responsible organization? Perhaps I want to dig a little deeper into how do you come up with this, or where does the energy come to say we're going to give 1/3 of our revenues to social giving, because that's what you're giving, $1 out of every $3. Like, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, well, a little bit of a fun fact, right? A lot of people think that our founder's name is Tom. It actually isn't. Tom stands for Tomorrow's Shoes.
Wow.
And that's really fun to know, because when we talk about a better tomorrow and how we're thinking about what's next for the organization, that's really been in our DNA from day one, right? A better tomorrow for children who didn't have shoes, a better tomorrow for building safer communities, for having stronger mental health, for equality for all people, are things that are really core to our DNA as a company and as an organization, and has been there since day one. So, we, I really, it is all grounded in Blake and his commitment, who is the name of our founder, and having that idea when he saw a need, figuring out how to create a sustainable way to support that need. And so as the world around us has changed, the issues that communities are facing, the way that communities are being supported through those issues. It's really inspired us. Our partners and our customers have inspired us to say, you know what, we should think about changing too. And that was big and scary to say, maybe we should do some, we will continue to give shoes, but maybe we should do something else as well. And so it's been it's a powerful way for us to think about how are we changing the world. So we will be giving our 100 millionth pair of shoes this year, which we're
Wow.
incredibly proud of and
My
excited about.
goodness.
But you, this evolution is important. Our customers have driven us to, and our nonprofit partners, our giving partners, have driven us to some of these other issues that are really critical in the world. And all the giving we've done over the last nearly 15 years has helped us learn a lot about what we should be doing and how we could do even more. So this evolution, for every $3 we make, we give $1 away, is something that is just fed upon the work that we've already done to date, and something that we have been, like I said, committed to from day one. Um, the new issue areas, when we think about giving shoes to children in need, we give those shoes to kids for ensuring that they have access to education, ensuring that they are able to be free of injury and of disease, and to ensure that they are building their confidence and they feel like they can do whatever they need to do in the world. Those three things have always been there for us. So when we talk about creating physically safe communities, when we talk about having stronger mental health, and when we talk about having equality across the world, those things are already part of who we are. We're just extending that now into a grant-based program where we can take the idea even further, and where shoes don't make sense, we can take that next step.
Wow, that is fascinating. And I'm sure that I'm going to be reading some people's minds here, but there's always this idea that it is easier for larger organizations to give, right? I mean, it's easy for Amazon. It's easy for, Mark Zuckerberg to say, I'm committing 99%, percent of all my money, because the 1% extra is still a lot of money. But
Yeah.
you are a small organization. You are a 400 employee global employees organization. So you are not Amazon. You're not in the size of, Google or Microsoft, and you are still giving 1/3 of your revenue, 100 million pair of shoes, and all the grants that you're giving. How do you keep that approach sustainable? How do you stay inspired to continue to do that? And how do you keep it sustainable, knowing that it's a lot for a small organization to give away 100 million pairs of shoes plus all the grants that you're giving?
Yeah. Well, look, I think that I believe very strongly, and I think the company overall believes, that combining the financial power of companies with the expertise of nonprofits is really the way we're going to create sustainable change in the world. And when we bring those two things together and we do that in a really smart way, there is, I believe, true change in the world. And so we've learned a ton from our giving partners. They've given us tons of energy. We've seen beautiful stories of people and how their lives have been changed through our work together. But we've listened to them a lot. They are the experts. And so, yes, we're a small company, but we've surrounded ourselves with those experts, and we're listening to them. So things like really developing deep partnerships. Some of our shoe giving partners have been with us for 10 years. Really making sure that we understand how is what we're giving additive to the programs that they know are most beneficial to their beneficiaries. Instead of, a lot of companies will come in and say, hey, we've got this, we want to do this, can you help us do it? We don't ask that question. We say, what are you already doing, and how can we add to that? Because you are working on an evidence-based program, and we certainly do all our homework when we're choosing our partners. So deep partnership. I think the second thing is investing in innovation. Companies have the flexibility to invest in things that might fail, but we all know that when we're investing in something that is a big idea, there's some learning along the way. And so I think we're all trying to be innovative companies. We're all trying to do more with what we can bring to the table. And so if we can really get brave about investing in innovation and big ideas that may or may not make it, I think that's a really powerful tool that companies can bring to nonprofits where a government or a foundation might not support them or invest in them in that way. And then the third is, look, these issues are complex, and we have to embrace that complexity as companies and be part of an ecosystem. And that may mean that our logo isn't exclusive, or that may mean that we're partnering with many others, or we're only a piece of the puzzle. And those are go a little against the grain of traditional approaches with companies. And I think all approaching it that way has given us the energy and the excitement and enthusiasm to keep it going. The sustainability piece is always in question, right? We are a model that gives away a ton that way. We are able to address our shareholders and our stakeholders, because we know that that's something that we're all committed to together.
That is absolutely fascinating, and I love the idea that Tom's, part of the message here is, belonging to an ecosystem where everybody's giving something, whether it is resources, it is, mental energy and power, ideas, to be part of this ecosystem, living in a complex world where we need more of each other to survive
Right.
and thrive, right? I mean, this is a complex world. Things move so fast. And I always talk about the example of, well, not always, like very recently because of the coronavirus, the fact that we this has happened to humanity before. This is not the first pandemic that we're living through,
Right.
and we're so unprepared, in part because we keep ourselves sort of secluded from everybody else, right? Like, I'm not going to share my scientific research, my papers. I'm not going to share my medical advancements with other countries because they will steal my ideas, instead of
Right.
saying, let's get everybody together to see how we can solve this, because this is a
Right.
global problem. And
Right.
it's part of the impact that you're having. You are getting to work with partners that are solving complex problems that have global impact. So
And
that's
in fact, we say often we say I say, like, we've invested in X, Y, or Z. I can't wait for a Jeff Bezos or somebody really big to step in and say, we're going to invest 10x what you've invested, right? And it's going to be in the same issue, because that's how we're going to solve some of these big problems. The companies have the money, the nonprofit partners have the expertise. We got to get in the middle and create that ecosystem together.
that is fascinating. And I want to ask you, a couple of questions. The first thing is, has always Tom's been like that? I mean, from the beginning of the company, did the founder say, I want Tom's to give one third of the revenue, or was it an evolving sort of mindset? And regardless of how it started, uh, what did you have to change within the company, in the company culture, from your employees, to embrace the fact that you wanted to be a socially responsible company? And the reason why I ask this question is because your employees and everybody else's employees too, they are also citizens of the world, and they may think, well, why are you giving 100 million pairs of shoes out there, and you're not giving this to us in money, back to us as employees, like for me to pay my credit card or to pay my student loans. So how do these two things, where do you start this mindset, and what changes do you need to make in the organization to make them to become this socially responsible?
Yeah. The mindset has been there since day one, and I
Wow.
do think it is harder. I want to recognize people on the call in this conference that it is harder to back into this model. I don't think it's impossible, and I think for bigger companies that are working through this, or for small companies that are just figuring it out, I actually think it will be even easier for small companies, because they're on the front end of developing their culture and on the front end of creating their sustainability strategy. And so if they can embrace this up front, and I see this more and more with entrepreneurial companies and small companies, that they're becoming B Corp certified, that they're
Yeah.
working toward all these different things up front. Because if you bake it into your DNA up front and you bake it into your commitments up front, it's easier to manage. If you're backing into it and you're a very large company, I don't think it's impossible, but I do think it's harder, and I want to recognize that. Because for us, it has been there from day one. I got to come into this organization, and be part of a model that was already, everyone was bought into. I didn't have to get people excited about it. I do have the responsibility of excuse me, keeping people excited about it.
Yeah.
keeping our employees engaged and feeling connected to it. And I think the best way to do that is first, we hire for culture, right? So we say, look, this is what we care about collectively, and there's not anyone in any department across the company that isn't there partially for our giving. If you talk to somebody in finance, they're in giving. If you talk to somebody in marketing, they're in giving. If you talk to somebody in supply chain, they're in giving. And we're the stewards of their great work, right? We can't do what we do unless they do what they do.
Yeah.
So I love that everyone at Tom's is in giving. And I think that that's a really important and powerful way to bring it to life. We do some things, and our department specifically focuses on bringing our impact to life for our employees. We do that in a couple of ways. One of the best benefits that a Tom's employee gets is that they get to go on a giving trip. They get, after 2 years of service in the company, they get to go out and see our impact very directly. So these are 5 to 7 day trips to our partners in international locations, some here in the US, but all over the globe. And they give shoes, or they see our site saving surgeries, or they see here in the US, we did a trip to Chicago and learned all about some of the investments we were making around ending gun violence.
Wow.
They get to do that for a week, and Tom's pays for everything. And they come back so inspired and so excited to continue to be a part of this movement. It's one of the most powerful tools we have to not only keep the culture alive, but bring the giving closer to these employees. The other things we do are sort of a little easier for people to do is bring a nonprofit into your company. Do a lunchtime chat with them. Have them be, front and center. International Women's Day is on Sunday. We're doing some events on Monday around International Women's Day, and bringing our partners in to talk about how do they support women and girls? How are they doing different activities and programs, and what can we learn from them? Our employees are eager to learn about the types of investments we're making. So we call them Tom's Talks, but you call them whatever you want, but an opportunity for employees to come together and learn. And then the last program, which is also, I think, really transferable to a lot of people, is we have a grants program that's internal. And we allow people the opportunity for their excitement and their energy to invest in a new idea or a big project or an organization they care about. So it's a competitive grants process. And we give $10,000 a month to employees that are interested in making an investment in something meaningful. And it's, like I said, competitive. There's a voting process, there's a vetting process, there's also a support process. So we help those employees understand the ins and outs of making an investment in an organization or an idea. And that's been incredibly popular. Our employees love it. And it's a way for them to really leverage the learnings of being at Tom's and connecting that to a deep passion they might have personally.
That is fascinating. I think you guys are a company of the future living in the present. Because what you're doing, which is not new, as you have been sharing with us, is this idea of bringing people, especially employees. I'm talking about this cultural, connection that we're talking about. Bringing potential employees and telling them this is what we are and this is who we are. Right? I mean, we're going to pay you well. You're going to be well treated, but this is what we are. And then you find the kind of people that are so committed, not just to earning a salary every month, but they are committed to the social mission of the organization. And that bond is so powerful that, sometimes I've seen companies where, first of all, they disregard the importance of building that bond between what the company could potentially do for the community and what their employees want. Or sometimes it also happens that they may have a social impact, but they don't connect their employees with that social impact, which is ultimately the same problem that if you didn't have a social impact at all, right? So it's fascinating that you're doing that. I mean, you guys are really a role model, when not only for your social impact, but the way you live your values within as well. I want to ask you, absolutely, and I want to ask you, it all sounds, super fascinating, but I guess there have been challenges along the way, right? Maybe some things that you have encountered, whether it is, within the company, but also in the, you live in an interconnected world. There's politics, there's social stuff going on. So what are some of the challenges that you have encountered that have put this vision at risk, right? That where you have come to a point where you're like, we got to make a decision now if we want to continue doing this.
Yeah. Well, certainly our choice to add other things besides shoes and to change our messaging a little bit to be more transparent for the consumer. So we have always given a third of our profits, but we've talked about it differently. The new consumer is very committed to a level of transparency that is new for all of us, and we need to be paying attention to that, and we need to be giving that to them if we want them to be committed to our brand. So that was obviously a big moment for the company. Like, how do we want to talk about this? What is the consumer expectation? How do we want to bring them into it? So that was one piece. I think, another here in the United States, the gun violence situation is the worst of anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we felt like, and we've learned a ton from our giving partners in that space, that if not us, who, if not now, when, to take on this issue as a company. And there are very few companies in the US that are investing in an effort to end gun violence. And as you can imagine, there were plenty of hearty debates around the leadership table as to whether or not, one, did we have credibility and permission to be in that space? And two, could we learn enough from our partners fast enough? And three, was this our role? Should we be investing in this? And so I think we came to the conclusion that when 100 people are being killed every day by guns in the United States, it doesn't matter about any of those other questions. It matters about doing the right thing and being part of the solution.
Wow.
And we've learned a ton from our partners. We've entered humbly, we've learned from them, and we've kind of put our money where our mouth is. And we have been able to make a positive impact there without alienating our current customers. And that was obviously a huge risk associated with making that. And I think, again, consumers are going to be calling companies to have a point of view, to make bolder, have a bolder perspective, and really share their values as a company with the consumer, and the consumers will make purchase choices based on that. I think trying to stay too vanilla or too generic will impact your relevance as a company. We believe that.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to do the things that we think are right, but it's hard. It's tricky stuff. We have a lot of conversations about it. We do a lot of research. We talk to our partners. We do not take any of these decisions that we make from a strategic standpoint lightly.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating, and I think the social role of organizations is becoming more important than ever in times where we see so much political divide, right? And companies have to step in to say, you know what, we're going to do the right thing. It happened in North Carolina, it happened in Georgia, very recently with some of the political decisions that those states have made, and big companies saying, you know what, you guys do that, I'm out of here. I'm going to another state where the people's freedom is respected, and people are tolerated and accepted for who they are.
That's right.
Yeah. So I love this conversation, Amy. We're getting to the end. I want to ask you one question, of course. Well, I've asked you a lot of questions already, but I want to ask you one more. And what if somebody's listening here, regardless of whether they are in HR or business leaders, where can they start this journey? What would be, a lot of them may be in companies where they didn't breathe these values from the very beginning, so they have to step in somewhere along the way. So what would be the maybe a couple of first steps for them to begin this journey of being more socially committed and responsible with their communities, around them, or the larger global community?
Yeah. I have a few thoughts on this, and this is just one gal's perspective. I had the great fortune of entering a company that had this baked into their DNA from the beginning. But I think two big things in this. One is you have to have your senior leaders on board.
Yeah.
They have to understand the value proposition of doing right by your stakeholders as much as doing right by your shareholders. And I think more and more companies are aligning there, right? When Larry Fink is in his, opening letter, who manages $1 trillion of assets, saying we have to recognize our stakeholders as much as our shareholders, we're at a tipping point as a society. And I think the more that we can help our senior leaders understand that, the better off we're going to be collectively. So I think that's a huge one, is can you get your senior leaders on board? Can you show them? And there's plenty of reports out there in dollars and cents. Why is this important for us to do?
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of retention strategies around this. And there's a lot of, this makes good business sense. And there's a lot of data out there that helps support that. So that's one. The second is getting really clear about the question, not just as an HR department or not just as a marketing department, but what do you actually as a company collectively, employees and all, stand for? And how can you bring that to life through your engagement with your customer? And I feel like if you have those two things, kind of everything else rolls from there. I feel like then you can figure out how much do you want to invest, and you can figure out what are the right types of investments for you to make, and you can figure out how do your values show in your marketing, in the products, in the communications. It all starts to, if you're crystallized there and you're convicted there and you have the right leadership support on that, the rest of it is just, I mean, you still have to do a great job executing, but it is, once you do that 20% on strategy and the 80% of execution that is needed, you can get there pretty quickly.
That is fascinating. Well, Amy, thank you so much. And everybody, I hope you are, very inspired to take action. I think it's, there are challenges. Toms have gone through some challenges. All companies do, but it's that commitment and the passion to make it happen. And, you're going to go through some maybe extra challenges during execution, but it is making it happen. It is taking action. So Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. Got a lot of comments, so I hope to send you some of those back, via email. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you. It was so much fun. Thanks, everyone.